Welcome back to Analytical Strategy. Today we are talking about thrown challenges in Survivor and when they have successfully gone according to plan. The general rule of Survivor is to try and stay immune and therefore safe within the game, as the dynamics of the tribe and the game can change at any point in time. Due to this, throwing a challenge is an extremely risky move which can backfire and cost you your spot in the game, such as Drew Christie in San Juan del Sur. But there have been some occasions where it has been beneficial for particular players to throw the challenge to ensure their safety and the safety of the people in their alliance long term. There have also likely been many challenges over the years which have been thrown which haven't made the story of the edit, so I'm just going to be discussing ones where it has been clear to the viewer the challenge has been thrown. So just before we get started, just a friendly reminder to hit that subscribe button to support the channel. There are a range of unique videos, quizzes and other fun Survivor topics to soon be released, so remember to stay subscribed to stay tuned to all of the latest content. And a big thanks to everyone who has subscribed so far. Now without further ado, let's get into how throwing a challenge may have worked in Survivor. So first up, we're going to be talking about Mike protecting Kelly in Survivor Worlds Apart. So in Survivor Worlds Apart, after the tribe swap, Mike and his closest ally in Kelly were unfortunately put on different tribes. Mike's tribe seemed to have all of the challenge strength. They had Joe, Rodney, Joaquim, Tyler, Dan and Sierra, whilst Kelly was the lone blue collar put onto a tribe with 3 no collars in Jen, Haley and Will, and 3 white collars in Carolyn, Shirin and Max. Due to being the only blue collar, Kelly looked to be in a pretty vulnerable position from the outside, and Mike wanted to ensure that his numbers were up once the merge hit, and really needed Kelly to stay alive to be a crucial part of his game. Within this immunity challenge, Jeff would show them a series of items in a specific order. Once they have the items memorized, they will pull a lever to drop a curtain and then they have to recreate it. The first person to get it right scores a point for their tribe, and the first tribe to 3 wins immunity. This was a really difficult challenge for Mike to throw, as Kelly and himself were paired up against each other in the final round, and Kelly really struggled being able to complete this task herself. Mike ended up stepping Kelly through the challenge on how to win, saying to look at his items and to switch around the bottles, ultimately gifting Kelly and her tribe the win of this immunity challenge. Mike was able to successfully throw the challenge to get out a player he really didn't have a good relationship from his tribe in, and that was Joaquim. This was short-lived when Kelly was unfortunately sent home after being idled out of the game by Jen in the following week, but it was still a successful challenge throw for what Mike was trying to achieve. But on the contrary, it also cost Rodney's trust for Mike in the process, so again it adds to the difficulty of throwing a challenge with complete success longer term. Up next, we're going to be discussing Peih-Gee and Jaime attempting to even out the numbers in Survivor China. So within Survivor China, we witnessed probably one of the worst twists we've seen so far, where each tribe had to select the opposing tribe's 2 strongest members, with Aaron and James going to Zhan Hu, switching with Frosty and Sharia going to Fei Long. Now Fei Long had a 2-person advantage at this stage of the game, and with a likely merge happening within 2 tribals' time, Peih-Gee devised a strategy that would ensure her old tribe would be even by the time they reached the merge. This strategy was via throwing consecutive challenges and voting off the 2 strongest members from the opposing tribe they just obtained. Peih-Gee rallied her ally Jaime on board, and together they blew the first immunity challenge and successfully were able to vote Aaron out of the game. The following immunity challenge then became extremely interesting, as Todd devised a counter plan in the case they tried to throw the immunity challenge again to eliminate James. This was one of the best attempted moves in Survivor history that did not work out. Todd was able to kidnap James and give him the hidden immunity idol to get them to throw the challenge again. This would protect his numbers and blindside Jaime. However, Peih-Gee and Jaime tried to communicate with their previous tribe mates in Frosty and Sharia to let them know they're still on their side, but they didn't get anything back in return, so they decided to try and win the challenge instead. And even with James's best efforts to throw it, they still won, and James ended up keeping Todd's idol and finding another in the process. So overall, Peih-Gee was successful in throwing the first immunity to even out the numbers, but due to a range of factors, they were unable to continue with the longevity of this plan moving forward. So up next, we're going to be talking about Natalie Anderson breaking a Survivor challenge by gifting Missy the reward. So within this commonly seen challenge in Survivor, contestants are required to ask a series of questions about the people left in the game. If they answer a question correctly, they get to chop another person's rope. Once a person's rope has been chopped 3 times, that person is out of the game. The last person left standing wins reward. This challenge has been historic in Survivor, being able to show where alliances lie and where people stand in the game. Now, I've seen this challenge quite a few times, and I've always said to myself if I were on the show, I would deliberately answer every question incorrectly, so I didn't have to cut anybody's rope and show where my alliances lie. Natalie took this to the next level, having an open discussion about who should win the challenge and coming to a mutual consensus that it should be Missy, throwing the challenge for herself and in turn the other members of her alliance. This prompted Probes to cancel the entire challenge straight away, and then asking Nat, John, Baylor and Jacqueline to admit they were throwing it to Missy. Not only was this a fantastic move for Natalie, as she was able to attend the reward with Missy and Baylor, but it also allowed her majority alliance to remain strong, and for her not to show any of her cards for any potential sub-alliances by continuing with the challenge. She literally broke the challenge altogether, and it has not appeared in a subsequent season since this appearance. So up next, we're going to be talking about Parvati throwing the Merge Immunity Challenge to Danielle in Heroes vs Villains. So the merge hit in Heroes vs Villains, and it was a battle between the 2 former tribes on who would strike first and get the numbers for the remainder of the game. It was a 5 vs 5 split between the heroes and villains, so obtaining immunity was crucial for any of the castaways left in the game. Within the Merge Immunity Challenge, the castaways had to hang on to a pole as long as they could, and the last person left hanging without touching the ground wins immunity. It came down to Parvati, Danielle and Candice. And after Candice voluntarily stepped down from the challenge, it was automatically resulted in a discussion between Danielle and Parvati on who should win the challenge. Parvati agreed to step off the challenge as she had an idol and could protect herself, and therefore allowed Danielle to win the immunity necklace. Now there are a number of reasons which contributed to this being a great time to step off from the challenge. Firstly, all the heroes had already stepped down, so it increased the villains' numbers to be protected when it came to tribal and a potential rock draw. Secondly, it allowed a close member of her alliance in Danielle to feel safe. It also showed confidence by Parvati that when she stepped down, she was almost saying she likely had an idol, which may have been a key reason as to why the heroes did not vote for her that night at Tribal. This allowed her to pull off probably the best idol play in Survivor history by playing an idol for Jerry and an idol for Sandra, knowing the heroes wouldn't have voted for herself or Russell, and with Danielle being immune. This resulted in JT going home and the villains obtaining the power for the remainder of the game. Even if she was wrong and they did vote for her, it still would have been a 5-5 split. Parvati would have also become immune with JT, and then there was an 80% chance of a hero going home, with Russell being the only person going to rocks on the villain side. Truly one of the best moves ever, and throwing the challenge and giving Danielle the win was a key factor in it all coming together. So last but by no means least, we're going to be discussing the first ever winner in Richard Hatch stepping off in the final immunity in Survivor Borneo. So in my personal opinion, the most successful challenge throw goes all the way back to season 1 and the final immunity challenge between Hatch, Kelly and Rudy. The reason I would rate this the best challenge throw of all time is literally any other outcome of this challenge would have resulted in Hatch losing the game. If Rudy makes the final 2, he just wins the game hands down, and whoever betrays Rudy on this vote basically loses the game by voting him out. If Rudy wins this challenge, he gets to the end and wins regardless who he takes. If Hatch wins and he takes Rudy, he loses. If he takes Kelly, he loses to Kelly for betraying Rudy's trust. By allowing Kelly to win the challenge, the blood is on her hands for voting out Rudy, and therefore Hatch is able to sit next to her and take out the prize for the first ever Survivor winner. Given this was the first ever season, this type of thinking was incredibly well thought out. The speech stating the other 2 finalists had to look at what Hatch did to get them there, and saying that the 2 remaining contestants in Kelly and Rudy had to pick who sits next to them and who goes on the jury, really shows that Richard was a step ahead of the competition this year, and pulled off one of the most underrated Survivor moves of all time. This was pretty similarly executed in the Survivor Marquesas series, with Vecepia agreeing to step down if Nalia takes her to the end, and then Nalia votes off the favourite in Kathy in the final 3, allowing for Sepia to take out the title. It is a move that is really hard to replicate in modern Survivor, as now voting out the best and well-liked players prior to the final tribal is seen as a good move, but given the nature of the game in Season 1, it was a move well above the rest of the competition. A similar move to this in modern Survivor would actually be, say, a Chris Underwood, giving away immunity to Julie to face his competition in Rick to take him out in the fire-making challenge. So this is also likely a key move to throw or give away the final immunity to result in him winning the game. Overall, I think throwing challenges is a very risky strategy, but prior to the merge and through some of the individual portions of the game, it can be very beneficial depending on the circumstance you are in. I think it is a very smart strategy to throw almost every individual reward challenge after the merge, because you never want to put yourself in a position of picking who should be rewarded, or to show your cards to your opposition. Rewards such as the loved one's visit is so impactful to each person, as people in the tribe want to be a part of it so badly. So being in the selecting seat for big rewards such as this will always result in some unhappy tribe members one way or another. Throwing immunities can be quite risky in Survivor, as things can change very quickly. I think generally you want to be protected as much as possible, but there are so many factors that can contribute to the contestants' decision making, and there are definitely circumstances where I can see the benefit in doing so. What do you guys think about throwing challenges in Survivor? Do you think it's beneficial overall? Let me know in the comments, and as always, thanks a bunch for watching, and remember to hit that subscribe button with new content coming very soon. This is Analytical Strategy signing out once more, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.